Hello and welcome to Magic by Design. If you're joining us for the first time, thanks so much for stopping by. We are delighted to have you with us. This podcast is on a mission to watch and review every Disney animated feature film released in cinemas. In each episode, we watch a classic Disney movie, then we talk about it, and there's even a little song at the end. Everything you could want from a Disney-themed podcast. This week, we watched Disney's 37th animated feature, Tarzan. But before we swing into this animated take on the tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ken, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host / brother Garrett. Gar, how are you?
Hey, how we doing?
As if in the blink of an eye, Gar, we have reached the end of the Disney Renaissance.
Have we, though? What's next?
And I'm going to tell you at the end.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what's next. Is it dinosaur?
No, I'm going to tell you at the end. You're going to like it.
Atlantis? Is it space planet? Treasure planet. It's all in space, though.
It's a surprise.
You're a surprise. You just turn on the film. Actually, no, I usually turn on the film, so you'll have to tell me before I turn the film on next week. So when we sit down to watch it.
Well, you're going to know by the end of the episode, Gar.
It is interesting that, I'm utterly less familiar with every film after Tarzan.
Yeah.
So, instinctually, clearly 7-year-old me was not as good. I'm not going to watch these anymore.
Yeah, we're entering uncharted territory for me as well, because I've seen the likes of Lilo and Stitch and Brother Bear, which, post-Renaissance are some
Classics.
Gems, yes.
Some would say one of which is the best Disney film, perhaps.
You're a bit biased there, Gar.
Yes, because it's the best Disney film. What are we talking about?
But we're getting into another period here where there's a lot of these films I haven't seen at all. Maybe I've seen, but I don't remember seeing them.
Also, you're slightly older than me, so you would have been 10 when Tarzan came out. And moving closer to the teenage years, we're like, kitty toonies, I'm too cool for this.
Yeah, I suppose you kind of get out of it for a while, then I remembered, why do I have to grow up?
Yes.
Let's just watch them all the time. I still watch them and I'm 31 years old, nearly 32.
Also, I'm distinctly more familiar with the Pixar output from the same era, so maybe it was as simple as, hey, Pixar's much better than Disney at the moment. Let's just watch the Pixar films.
Yeah, maybe they took over the mantle that Disney left off. I specifically remember being desperate to see this film in a cinema car. I saved up my pocket money for a few weeks and Mum took me. It was just me and her. I loved the art so much in this movie that I bought a children's book that told an abridged version of the story on the way home.
You could have just played the video game, Ken.
Yeah.
It has all the cutscenes.
Keep in mind that this book was for 4 to 6 year olds, but as you noted, I was 10 at the time.
Mentally, that's where you always are, so.
Thanks, Gar.
You're welcome.
There wouldn't be a podcast without you berating me.
We were doing a test a second ago, and Ken nearly didn't let me speak, so this is all just revenge.
Sorry. Also, I bought a Tarzan toy. He had a skateboard, which does not appear in the movie. Classic toys of the era, just throw random things in there.
No, I remember that. It was like a log skateboard, wasn't it?
Yeah, we still have the Tarzan over there in your toy box.
My toy... Where?
Wait, where did you put your toy box? Your toy box is in a different room now. Sorry.
I think it might be in the shed. Or did I get rid of that? Because there was a period where I did get rid of my toys. Legitimately, because I was 22 at the time or whatever. I sat down, nobody was in the house, and I spent an hour and a half playing with my toys one more time.
Oh,
it was full on Toy Story.
Did you Andy it?
Yeah. So a full toy session with all of my Batman figures and my Lord of the Rings Gandalf and all of these characters with I've endued long-term storytelling arcs, and we had to do a finale because I think they're throwing them out or something, or maybe they might be in the shed, who knows, or they're gone forever. So yeah, Tarzan was probably there. All these characters of my childhood, Ken, had to have their blow off, if you will.
Well, the good news is, Garrett, you still have your wrestling toys. They're in my bedroom, my former bedroom.
They're under your desk.
I don't think they're under my desk.
Maybe you moved them.
They're in the wardrobe.
They used to be under the desk, but I guess Ken likes his leg space when he's working.
Yeah, I do. In fact, like my leg space. And Tarzan, you might remember we used as a wrestler for many years.
Yeah.
So I think we still have him.
He might be in there. Fair enough. Good job, Tarzan. You're a good brother.
Way to hang in there.
When I threw away all the rest of my toys, smart, got in with the wrestlers, which are still just sitting there.
Threw away your childhood, Gar.
Dozens and dozens of them.
Pre-production began on Tarzan in 1995, so it took about 4 years to release. Kevin Lima was selected to direct, with Chris Book joining him the same year as co-director. Lima was given the role on the strength of his performance as the director of the Goofy movie in 1995.
So, Lima directed The Prince of Egypt, which is a DreamWorks film, and was released a year beforehand. So is he a traitor? Or is he a comebacker? Or is he a duplicitous agent who works between both?
I don't know, because we'll get onto it later, but the relationship between the two studios was acrimonious, to say the least, so I don't think he was a freelancer. So maybe he finished work on Tarzan, or nearly did, and went over to do The Prince of Egypt. Maybe, I don't know, The Prince of Egypt, they would have been in production simultaneously, surely.
Yeah, you would have thought so, given they released a year apart. Unless the Wikipedia's lying to me and he wasn't the co-director of The Prince of Egypt. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe that's just a thing put on his Wikipedia page, because I'm looking at the actual Prince of Egypt Wikipedia page and it says Brenda Chapman, Steve Hickner and Simon Wells were directors.
So there we go, Gar.
So maybe this Wikipedia is just wrong. Wikipedia, how could you betray me like this?
Wikipedia is wrong, Gar?
Yeah. Chris Buck, though, famously the director of Frozen.
Yes, of course.
And there's fan theories about Frozen that he tied them together with Tarzan. Chris Buck also, by the way, directed the celebratory hit that is Surf's Up.
Did he do Surf's Up 2 or Surf's Up WrestleMania or whatever it was called?
Oh, maybe he did. We have to check that. Did he direct John Cena? That's a very important question, Ken. Good question.
Anyway, well, you Google that. Tarzan.
No, he had nothing to do with Surf's Up 2. It's very disappointing. Or any further Surf's Up films.
Maybe that's why they weren't successful.
I think so.
Tarzan premiered at the El Capitan Theatre in June 1999 and received positive reviews from critics who praised the animation and music. Against a budget of $130 million, that's $203 million in 2021. Then the most expensive animated movie ever made until, Gary, you like this, Final Fantasy The Spirits Within in 2001.
Oh, what a flop. What a dud. Amazing thing. Legitimately sank Square. They had to merge with Enix because that film was such a flop. Amazing.
The film grossed $448.2 million, which is $700 million in 2021, becoming the fifth highest film release in 1999 and the second highest animation release of 99, just behind Toy Story. And it's also the first Disney animated feature to open at first place in the North American box office since Pocahontas. So that says something in itself in some ways.
Didn't it have some big competition as well? Yeah, Star Wars. It beat Star Wars, Episode 1. So there you go. Tarzan, bigger hit than Star Wars.
I'm shocked.
Legitimately though, like, going out there and beating, like, Star Wars, that was the first Star Wars film, whatever it was, a decade plus. And yeah, Tarzan went out there and was like flexing their Disney animated muscles, beating it. Maybe it wasn't Star Wars' opening weekend, but nonetheless.
What do you think lured people to it? Was it the music? Was it
I think it's
the story?
Tarzan's beefy muscles.
Oh yeah.
That's what I think so. Because just look at it. Who would not want to go see that beefcake of a man swing around from the trees?
I think a lot of people had their sexual awakening to Tarzan.
Yeah, look at him. All those muscles. What age is Tarzan in this film?
I don't know.
Like,
he must be like 16, maybe 18.
His face looks much older though.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like living with monkeys. Maybe that makes your face old.
Yeah, but the timeline can't be too long because we'll get into it in a while, but he eventually kills the leopard that killed his parents.
Yeah.
And Kala's original child, so
you would say, like, when he's young, he's probably like 5 or 6.
yeah.
And when he's older, he's at least 18.
Yeah.
You would hope.
What's the lifespan of a leopard?
I don't know. Let me Google this while you continue to talk about things that I probably don't care about.
The production team...
I mean, a very important thing.
Thank you, Garrett.
Love you.
The production team embarked on a research trip to Uganda and Kenya to study gorillas. They visited the Bwindi Impenetrable National Park in Uganda to view mountain gorillas in the wild and get inspiration for the setting.
Oh, here we go, Ken. Leopards have a lifespan of 12 to 17 years. This is a major plot hole in this film. We need this to be addressed.
That leopard likely would have been dead. Or maybe it's not the same leopard.
Maybe it is the same leopard, and that's why Tarzan could beat him, because he's just beating the shit out of an old, decrepit leopard who can barely walk anymore.
Or maybe it's the son of the other leopard.
Alright, how old is Tarzan in Tarzan? In the Disney movie. He's 18, according to this Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I would have guessed that.
So yeah, that does mean, like, unless he's like somehow 12 in the scene where the leopard, but no, the leopard is there when he's a baby. So that leopard should be dead. That leopard should be dead, Ken. That's what we're saying here. Or Tarzan just picked on an old broken down leopard and was like, look at me, I am undefeated conqueror. But nah, he just like kicked the cane out from under the leg of this leopard and killed it with his freaking bare hands.
Take that, Kerchak. I killed that leopard you couldn't kill.
That's why Kerchak is like, I am not impressed by this. Come on.
That leopard was a pensioner. The animation of the film combines 2D hand-drawn animation with extensive use of computer-generated imagery. It was done in California, Orlando, and Paris, with the pioneering computer animation software Deep Canvas being predominantly used to create the three-dimensional backgrounds.
I was reading the critical reaction to this film, Ken, and they're astounded by the visuals.
Yeah.
Like, it blows them away. Like, never mind the rest of it, they're all talking about how, like, this film is a revolutionary leap in visuals, unlike anything we've ever seen from Disney before. And I'm like, is it?
I think it has the house style of animation, but in terms of the environment, I think it's the best rendering of a wild environment since Bambi.
But it's not even as good as Bambi. Bambi is a better rendering of a live environment.
But I think the sense of life and movement they brought to the jungle with the deep canvas and the movements of Tarzan, I think that's an astounding achievement in animation.
Is it?
That's my opinion.
Maybe it's my 2021 eyes looking at these films, having seen all the subsequent jumps in animation, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, oh, it's bad. It's like, it looks pretty standard.
This is 21 years ago now, Gary.
But like, we're watching these films back to back to back to back to back, and I'm still like, looks pretty standard.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this film that makes you go like, whoa, this is the new high watermark of animation. Nothing that was done here has ever been done in other films. It's like, maybe they did more of it, but they certainly have done nothing here that they haven't done in other films. And like, I do like the depth of camera stuff. I like the like 2D environments with a 3D camera that they go for a lot in this, and then occasionally they go too far with the 3D stuff and it looks kind of bad. And
then there's the kind of use of perspective, which you wouldn't have seen too many times in previous films,
but still saw in some of them.
So you're like using head-on coming towards camera shots, which you wouldn't have seen before.
But yeah, I found it very strange that they were like raving about it. It wasn't like, oh, you know, it looks nice. It's like, no, they're raving about it, and I'm like, nah.
But there was a technical innovation here, Gar, in that deep canvas allows the artist to produce CGI backgrounds that look like traditional paintings. According to art director Daniel St. Pierre, the software keeps track of brushstrokes in 3D space, and they received an Academy Award in, the technical awards that they often award before the ceremony itself from the Motion Picture Arts and Sciences section of the Academy in recognition of the technical achievement of Deep Canvas.
Very good.
Gar zones out.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care about these I've already dismissed the animation of this film, Ken, so all of their technical achievements are unwarranted, even though it does look quite nice.
As I noted, Gar, one of the most interesting parts of the animation of this film is Tarzan when he surfs the trees. The supervising animator for Tarzan, Glenn Keane, was inspired to have him surf through the trees. He had this light bulb moment due to his son's interest in extreme sports and began testing the concept, and Disney, once they saw the animation, liked it.
Is this where Chris Buck got the idea for Surfed Up? It's like, oh, tree surfing. What if I did penguin surfing?
Yeah, it's all animals, Gar. Keane used Tony Hawk as a reference point for his tree surfing. So it's more like tree skating.
So that's where the skateboarding action figure came from.
Ah.
Obviously. And this is during the period where Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 came out in 99, I think. So really, they were ahead of their time, because I don't think that came out until late 99. And that game was great.
Keane initially thought it would be easy to animate Tarzan as well. I find this interesting. He thought to it due to his simple design, the fact that he only wears a loincloth. But then he realised that he'd have to have a character with the musculature of a man, but who moved like an animal. So the team who worked on Tarzan studied different animals and transposed their movements onto him. They also consulted a professor of anatomy. So Tarzan is the first Disney movie to accurately portray working human muscles, if you're interested in that kind of thing.
And you can see them. They're beefy.
Yes.
Tarzan's a hunk.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Even while bending over and hunching and moving on his all fours. Still a hunk.
Tarzan is a stone cold fox.
He should have more trouble walking on his 2 feet, I think.
Yeah.
They should have to teach him to walk more.
Well, they do show that because his spine is a bit wobbly and,
They have to straighten his back.
Yeah.
He moves on his fists a lot. That would hurt human fists, I feel like. His fists should be very callous and scarred.
Well, I imagine they are.
If he continues to walk using them, Our fists aren't built for that. I'm picking all kinds of logical plot holes in this film.
One thing I will bump on here for the animation, the 3D rendered water in the opening and throughout doesn't look great. I never noticed it before, but now it can't be unseen. Now, of course, Disney have really worked on this in subsequent years, and now they've come to a point where they really can render water almost
But there
perfectly.
was points before this where they rendered water quite lovely.
Yeah.
Like Little Mermaid. The water in Pocahontas is wonderful. Like top-notch water. So this is a regression in Disney animation, Ken. Never mind the firm foot forward people are pretending it is.
I think
now anti-Tarzan. This is my bit for this podcast. I hate Tarzan.
I think in terms of the movement of Tarzan and the environment, I think that's why people like it, and that's why I like it. So you're wrong, Gar.
They like the action scenes.
There's a lot of action in this movie. It's very fast-paced.
Yes. Tarzan using all his beefy muscles to slide around the jungle and fight people.
Gar, this is the first Tarzan movie to be animated. Thomas Schumacher, the president of Walt Disney Feature Animation at the time, expressed surprise that there weren't any previous attempts to make Tarzan in an animated film. He said, "Here's a book that cries out to be animated. Yet, we're the first filmmakers to have ever taken Tarzan from the page to the screen and presented the character as Burroughs intended." Schumacher felt that Tarzan could connect to animals on a deeper level in animation than any of the live-action entries.
It does feel like we know Walt Disney absolutely loves his old stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because, like, Edgar Rice Burroughs is American, isn't he? So maybe that's it. Walt Disney only ever made British books.
Well, yeah, it actually is uncanny how many British properties he made.
So yeah, maybe that's his bias. But yeah, it's interesting that this does feel like something they should have tried to make before now.
They've tried other things like
when they went for like Peter Pan and stuff. This feels like right up there. Actually, no, when was Tarzan written? It's a good question. Tarzan published between 1912 and 1966. That's a nice range. Oh no, a series of adventure novels. So 1912 is the origin of the character. So yeah, it should have been right in the Disney range. Knowing then, they should have bought the character rights back in like 1912, even though they didn't exist. But still,
on that point though of Tarzan being able to connect with the animals on a deeper level. One of the things I liked about the story that they went with in this film was it diverged from the book in that basically we find out that Tarzan is the lost Earl of Greystoke, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, he's royalty. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and he goes back to England. And
very convenient.
It's kind of a fish out of water story where he would have been, like, we find out he tries to go and live in that world, he can't, and he goes back to the jungle. I would have found that very boring. It could have easily been the film that they made.
Yeah.
And
you can really see how, like, we do the fish out of water stuff, he can't wear a suit. Oh, what? He doesn't know what a car is. He's scared by a car. It's basically Wonder Woman 1984 with Chris Pine in the 80s instead of back in the early 1900s.
Yeah, so
that's the film they would have made.
And the thing I find interesting is that the part of the story that's least emphasized in the book, where he is raised by apes, having been adopted by a gorilla when his parents are killed, and that's the crux of the story, or the main focus of the story here, his relationship with that family of gorillas, and they transpose, as they often do, human characteristics and human, societal values on them. But apparently, though, it's not entirely a stretch, because gorillas are a very hierarchical society. That's a hard word to say.
Hierarchical.
So, like, Glenn Close here is phenomenal as Kala, and it's a kind of a way into talking about themes like acceptance and, unconditional love, and, sometimes the family that you end up with is the family that you needed all along.
But then you betray them and they almost get kidnapped, and then you realise, oh geez, they're my friends.
Yeah, but I think it's a much more interesting story than the he's an earl or a duke or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, convenient. Why would his parents be out there in the frickin' jungle if he's royalty? Come on. Out there on a boat by themselves. Maybe they're just passing this island. All right, I'll allow it. But yeah, I like that first like 10 minutes is, I think, probably the strongest part of the film. Or first of all, Two Worlds, incredible song. But that sequence where the parents die and Kala he's accepted by the monkeys except Kerchak, who's like, fuck this kid. I like the way he goes straight for the jugular. It's like, he will never replace our dead son. I am not beating around this bush. I'm going straight to the point of the matter.
He's going to be the ruin of us all, which eventually he nearly is, in fairness. He's right.
Kerchak is 100% right. So Tarzan is a menace who should have been left in the treehouse for the leopard to take down. But
so they do explore the themes of Tarzan finding out that, he was never meant to be born into this world.
It's more a nature-nurture thing as opposed to a royalty and a human thing. It's like, he just wants to know, why am I different from you? Because clearly he realizes, wait, I'm not a monkey. Eventually. Yeah. Well, actually, he only really realizes that when he sees, because he obviously doesn't know what people are until he sees Jane and Co. It's like, wait a minute. And the cogs start going off in his brain. Yeah, so they do explore those themes of him trying to decide which world he belongs in. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's trying to encapsulate nature versus nurture. So this wasn't the world that he was meant for, because he's meant to be in the human world, but this is the world that he lives in, and this is where he thrives, and this is where his family is, In the immortal words of Phil Collins, Ken, 2 worlds, 1 family. Trust your heart. Let fate decide.
It is a kind of an absurd way to present that kind of story. Like, Kerchak doesn't accept Tarzan, and, Glenn Close, having lost her child, accepts Tarzan as her own because she doesn't see him as different.
But also just sees him as a creature in need. Like, his parents are dead, gruesomely murdered by a leopard, and they're left there the entire time. Another plot hole in this film, he should see their skeletons at the end.
When he goes back there.
Very upset.
Also, we're seeing corpses, we're seeing blood in a Disney movie for the first time.
And Clayton's death, we're just screwed, we're going straight to the end. Yeah. Clayton's death is like the most gruesome thing ever in a children's film, ever. Not just a Disney film, not just like animation, not just anything. Every single thing aimed at children. This man is hanged in the trees, and then there's like a flash of lightning, and you see his dangling corpse after his neck snapped from falling like 30 feet in the air, and it just goes twip, thwip, and there goes his neck. His neck is dead with a like, and he's dead, and he's hanging there. He's hung, Ken. Never mind the ambiguous fall to your doom. Never mind Mulan, where he's just kind of sort of blown up in fireworks, but we don't see it. Clayton is like very firmly hung, and he's like, what a gruesome way to die.
Well, you're right, Garrett. Clayton's death is perhaps the most grim Disney villain death of all time. There's no ambiguity there at all. He's definitely dead. In fairness, you know, he did it to himself because the vine was tightening around his neck and he's slashing him away. Tarzan tries to warn him. Then he starts to plummet. Tarzan goes after him, but he's not quick enough, even though he caught Jane in plenty of those circumstances. So maybe he wanted Clayton to die, but yeah, his neck is snapped.
Maybe this is the post. We're post Jeffrey Katzenberg now, so yeah, like Jeffrey Katzenberg would be like, no, this is a children's film, but now we're in the year where Disney are like, yeah, hang him, he needs to be hung.
Corpses, blood, you know, maulings by leopards.
Yes, families being killed.
But just going back to the origins of the story, I do like that kind of thing that Kala finds Tarzan, and you know, obviously they find each other at a point where they both need each other. It's a little bit contrived because, you know, her kid is killed and they're killed by the same leopard, and then Tarzan eventually fights and kills that leopard. But I think that's a really satisfying story, and I kind of, you know, the week that we've had as well, it also has things to say about, you know, if we look at people on face value, then we only see differences and we kind of embrace our prejudices. But I know it's schmaltzy, but we're all the same on the inside, and we all just want the same things at the end of the day, and if we can look past those things, we can come to a place of love and acceptance.
Unless they storm the Capitol and try to kill everybody.
Yeah.
Or storm the monkey land and try to kidnap all the monkeys. Or gorillas, sorry.
Gary, you mentioned Clayton there because I think it had to be said there because it is probably the most striking part of the movie. He doesn't feature in the original book. He was created to act as a threat to the gorillas to keep Tarzan in the jungle rather than departing for England. I think that was a good choice, as we said. Like I wouldn't have liked to see that original story. I think it was good that they kept it in the jungle environment.
What do you think of Clayton?
For the longest time, I didn't know Clayton was voiced by Brian Blessed. It's not a very Brian Blessed performance because over the years he's become quite the parody of himself.
Yeah, he doesn't do the full Brian Blessed, I'm doing my Brian Blessed voice.
I think that he does have a lot of the tropes of Disney villains, like he's conniving, he has a hidden agenda, he totally tricks Tarzan very easily, actually.
It's the same, as we were thinking about this, because it's the same thing as The Rescuers Down Under, where it's like, oh, we wouldn't it be awful if we couldn't see these things? Lead me right to them. And then he leads them right to them.
Oh, Jane will go away if you don't show her the gorillas.
You horny, bro? She go?
Yeah, so I think he serves a perfectly functional part of the story, but I don't think he's up there in terms of Disney villains, but he does have a very memorable demise.
Yes, he's a poor man's Gaston, I think.
Yeah.
Especially, he's even like relatively similar-ish in design to Gaston.
I think he's like Gaston mixed with a bit of Scar, maybe Jafar. You know, that's the vibe I get.
There's not much going other than he wants to kidnap the gorillas. That's all. He's just a mean man who wants to kidnap gorillas for £300, which doesn't seem like much money, but there's £36,000 in modern money, which still doesn't seem much for just kidnapping and selling gorillas. So I still have a problem with him selling them for only £300. God damn it. Yeah, he's fine. His death is great. His death is like just utterly shocking, and I'm surprised there weren't. Actually, I'm going to Google complaints about Tarzan.
I'm surprised there weren't objections to that.
There surely were people who were like, "This is a children's film," like on Joe Duffy in frickin' 1999, being like, "Joe, this is a very Irish reference, but we have Irish listeners. Joe, I took my little Jimmy down to see Tarzan, and Joe, it was outrageous. There was someone who was hung."
Yeah, thank you for assaulting our listeners' ears there. Gary.
I'm looking at the thing, and it didn't pop once. That's fine.
But
doing my Joe Duffy lady on the radio voice.
If you're not from Ireland, just insert any talk show where people call in to complain.
Joe Duffy. And Joe's like, yeah, terrible. And then says something that's probably, actually, you know, he asks a question that somebody's already answered, which is the most infuriating Joe Duffy trope. And we come to no resolution after people complain on the radio.
Stokes the fires. There are some fun facts about the voices of this film. Young Tarzan is voiced by the kid from Home Alone 3 and Max Keeple's Day Off, or whatever they call it. Basically the rip-off.
Big Move. Come on.
Sorry. It's a big move.
Yeah, it's Max Keeple's Big Move.
Oh,
He's moving, and then he's like, I can act with impunity, and starts to be a menace to society, before I think in the end it turns out he doesn't move, and he's like, well, shit.
I thought it was like a kid's Ferris Bueller thing. Anyway, Brendan Fraser twice auditioned for the role of Tarzan before getting the lead in George of the Jungle. Maybe those things are related. And Woody Allen was initially cast as the neurotic elephant Tantor. However, Jeffrey Katzenberg persuaded Allen to leave the project for DreamWorks Pictures' Ants. In exchange, the studio would distribute his next 4 films. Katzenberg had also poached Steven Schwartz, who had begun work on Mulan, to do the music for The Prince of Egypt. So Katzenberg really went after Disney, and that's why their relationship wasn't the best. Which that's why I was surprised when he said that Chris Buck had worked on both films, possibly at the same time. It didn't make any sense.
It's just Wikipedia lying to us. It is interesting that he's like, all right, I'm moving to DreamWorks. Now we're taking Disney down. Like, it wasn't like, we're founding this new animation studio. We're not direct competitors with Disney. We're just trying to make more. It's like, no, we're going for Disney. And he lost. Well, they didn't lose, but like, DreamWorks is a perfectly functional studio doing perfectly well. But
as far as I know, it was a fairly acrimonious split as well between Katzenberg and Disney. They basically ousted him eventually.
Yeah. And then he went on to form Quibi, and Quibi died. I wonder, would Quibi have banned Donald Trump from their platform this week?
There's also
I'm moving to Quibi.
Mr. President is like, damn it, I'm gonna fund Quibi. Quibi is back. There's also a fan theory that Tarzan's parents are Anna and Elsa's parents from Frozen. Now, in the book, they're obviously British aristocracy, and I'm pretty sure they're like Danish, maybe.
They're Danish, yeah.
In Frozen.
Hans Christian Andersen.
So the theory is that, because we see at the start of Frozen that the ship goes down. They're on a ship that's similar, and the ship goes down. And it would make sense that they'd have a male heir, and they'd leave the female ones there. That doesn't matter. We'll take the male heir, because that's the important one.
No, actually, I worked out my big logic plot hole on that. Is like, if they had a son, that would be mentioned in Frozen. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, our brother is dead too. That's the thing they'd bring up. Unless, Ken, we don't know how long this voyage was. Maybe it's like a 2-year voyage. Maybe she got pregnant and had the child on the voyage the entire time, so they didn't know they had a brother. So it all comes together.
But it still doesn't...
No, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Still.
It's nice. You entertain it for like a minute, and you're like, well, like, they're 2 different countries. And
it's probably Disney being like, we need to do a shipwreck. It's like, we did one from Tarzan. Can we more or less copy it? It's like, yeah, sure.
Just in more high fidelity 3D. So like, it is fun, but it doesn't really work out that much. Another thing, Gary, I always thought Turk was a boy as a kid. That's maybe my man bias.
Yes, you can't detect Rosie O'Donnell's voice. I was the same. But still.
Turk is in fact a girl who is voiced by Rosie O'Donnell, as you said. More like a tomboy, so maybe that's where the confusion came from, but still. This movie also has Tarzan doing blackface. Now, he is a kid, and he's trying to...
But you see... The more problematic bit about the blackface is like he's doing blackface to make himself look like gorillas.
Yeah. Which
you're like, oh no.
So in the context of the film, it's not problematic. But
I think it's still a little problematic in the context of the film.
He's a kid trying to fit in.
Nonetheless, they knew what they're doing there. It's like, guys, don't do that. No, don't do that. I will say, you were talking about Woody Allen. He was replaced by Wayne Knight, who I think is the most 90s actor in the history of the 90s.
Yes, he's in Jurassic Park. He's also in Space Jam.
Yeah, I don't think there's an actor who's like more closely tied to the 90s, solely because I don't think he did anything after the 90s.
Yeah, he does the odd sitcom appearance now, but nothing much.
Yeah, Wayne Knight, very 90s actor. Especially 90s children, or 90s like blockbuster or children's films. Because as you said, Space Jam, Jurassic Park, and Tarzan are his big 3. As
I said, Gert, there's a lot of fast-paced action in this movie. Like, there's, as we mentioned, the sequence where the leopard goes after Kala when she's trying to save Tarzan. You know, there's a lot of good physical comedy in there, a lot of good use of the 3D cameras and different perspectives. Like, we're used to going from left and right. You know, we're seeing shots come towards camera and different arcs of movement. There's also the sequence where Tarzan fights and kills Sabor, which is very thrilling. There's great use of perspective again, and the score here is excellent too. Adds to the sense of danger and urgency. So
actually, you know where I like the 3D effect most? It's toward the end of the film when Tarzan brings them to where all the gorillas are, and they do that like 3D round shot of the gorillas all like poking their heads out from trees, and you know, all them emerging from the bushes, and obviously then Clayton starts shooting at them and trying to kidnap them. But I think that's where the 3D effect looks best.
That's a nice part of the score as well, where it's like a sense of wonder and discovery. So
before
nice.
Kerchak dies.
Yeah. Also, Gar, talk about being problematic. Jane and Tarzan's first meeting could be viewed as problematic in 2021.
He does fondle her quite a bit.
Yeah.
Though I do like the fact that he's like touching her and she's like, stop. And he's like touching her. And it's like, you're a weird thing touching me. And then he goes too far. He's like, stop it.
Yeah. And she kicks him away. So, there is a bit of agency, and it does send a message here that, like, even though it makes sense in the context of the story, we're still setting boundaries.
And like they make jokes about it later. Like, he's meant to be violating personal boundaries there because he's a monkey man who doesn't know how anything works. So when he is brought to the camp, she's like, oh, he doesn't have great instincts when it comes to personal boundaries.
Yes.
That's my Mini Driver impression.
Yes, Mini Driver. Very good performance here as Jane as well. Is there anything else to say about the story, Garrett? I don't know.
Baby Tarzan's adorable.
Of course.
Super adorable.
His big head on him.
Making sneezing faces and all that fun stuff. I think that's about it. I think as a story, I think it's fine. I think it has a nice little message, nice little story, nice little characters. It wouldn't be like one of the stories I'd put up as like, oh, this is really the best storytelling Disney has ever done. It's a lot like Mulan in the sense that this is like factory assembly line great storytelling. Not like in the, as I said last week, when people think assembly line, they think like, put together in a way that's mechanical and almost cynical, which it somewhat is. But actually, no, it's not. They hang a character in this film. You can't call that cynical. If they were being cynical, that scene would not have made it into the film. So I think it's, again, very proficient to Disney. Good people who know what they're doing good things, but not like the most revolutionary things they have done.
Actually, if you look into that death deeper, do you think like the fact that they had him have a very definitive on-screen death, that they're saying they're condemning his point of view?
Well, that's always the case with because all these villains die. It's actually a very weird thing that all of these villains die. Like, they don't, skulk off into the distance after they lose. They all die. We give the definitive ending of they fall to their doom, or they explode in fireworks, or they're literally hanged. And so, like, Disney is always the case that this person's point of view is bad and wrong.
Gary, we'll move on here to the music.
Phil Collins!
Phil Collins was recruited to compose and record the songs, integrated with a score by Mark Mancina. The directors decided early that they did not want Tarzan to sing in the film. They thought it would look ridiculous, and they decided that Phil Collins' music would act as a narration for the film instead. I
think that works. That's a wise choice.
Yeah.
Because I think if Tarzan had to, like, break into song about, what's the name of that song? Strangers Like Me?
Yeah.
Like, if he had to sing that song, it just would not have worked.
I think you might have gotten away with it when he was a kid. But yeah, like in The Lion King, where Simba sings, I just can't wait to be king. And then, when he's a teenager, he does the end of Hakuna Matata, but he doesn't sing when he's trying to kill Scar.
Yeah. Full Les Mis.
Yeah, so I think that's a good move there. Another note I had there, Gar, the drums in the opening and throughout, it really gets my heart pumping straight away. I don't know, there's something about drums that are very visceral to me.
Well, yeah, it's the beat of the drums. It matches the heartbeat.
You'll Be in My Heart, that sequence makes me teary every time. I remember that part in particular watching the cinema as a kid, especially the butterflies, and it felt like being there in the dark theatre because they're there in the dark jungle, and you're in a rare move, Gar. I like both the movie and the soundtrack performances. Glenn Close does a really fantastic job.
You can't go wrong with Phil Collins, Ken, who is like legitimately my favorite musical artist. Like, one of the things I was known for as a kid. It's like the Phil Collins guy. And we saw Phil Collins live like 2 years ago, 2018?
2017.
17,
4 years ago. Nearly 4.
3.5. 3.5 years ago, we had the pleasure of seeing him live. He did no Tarzan songs, which quite upset me. And apparently, on that tour, he did do You'll Be in My Heart at some of those dates.
I
didn't do it at our date.
That's the only one I wanted. In fact, that's the only song he didn't play that I would have wanted to see.
Yeah, but still, seeing Phil Collins live was cool. This score, I think... Like, I don't think this has the best songs in Disney history, but I think in terms of consistency top to bottom, it might be the best Disney score.
Yeah.
Because all of these songs are bangers. It's weird that I'd say none of these songs are top tier Disney, but all of them are bangers, except maybe, the Trash in the Camp.
That's my least favourite song and sequence, in fact, in the movie. It feels inconsequential, and I know Phil Collins wrote it, but it doesn't feel very Phil Collins-y.
Well, that's because he doesn't sing on it.
But I think to your point, like, individually, if you stack them up against some of the other films, like Beauty and the Beast and Lion King and Little Mermaid, they might come off second best, but as a whole and a cohesive package that tells the story of this film, I think that's what sets it apart. The package works perfectly for this film.
Yeah, and Phil Collins is like Hitmaker King. He writes great songs.
Apparently, his daughter Lily, who is now an actress, she's most famously recently in the Netflix series Emily in Paris. He decided to do this film for her, and You'll Be in My Heart is a lullaby for her.
Oh, I must shout out an injustice though, Ken. 1999 Academy Awards.
Yes.
You'll Be in My Heart won the Oscar.
It did. It won Golden Globe as well.
Yes, it shouldn't have. You know what should have, Ken?
What? When Somebody Loved Me from...
No, Blame Canada from South and When She Loved Me from Toy Story 2 is like one of the best songs in any of these films ever in an animated film. It totally should have won.
Yeah, but it's Phil Collins.
I love Phil Collins. You know my love of Phil Collins. For me to say that Phil Collins should not have won an Academy Award despite my love of him, I think tells you everything about how good When She Loved Me. But yeah, Blame Canada from South Park was one of the... I actually should look up the freaking... because they did musical performances that year at the Oscars. I know for a fact they did because I've seen the When She Loved Me one. I should look up the Blame Canada live Oscars performance. That would be quite funny.
Yeah, I used to watch the Oscars as a kid, and that's one of the few performances I remember. Because I
really like always like there's years where they didn't do it, and I'm like, one of my favorite things is like the live performances of Best Song. And when Peter Gabriel refused to do,
because they wouldn't let him do the whole song.
We're Coming Down. So John Legend did it.
I think it's John Legend, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving on to the legacy of this film, so it's time for Gar's video game corner.
Oh, yes, because there was a video game released roughly a week after the film came out, which is actually interesting. I did a video on it, youtube.com/GarKidney. The interesting thing I found out that was like the Bugs Life and our Hercules films, or our games, were released before the films. And like they have the full plot of the films in those games, so you can spoil it. Like if you bought the game like 2 days before the film came out and played the game in those 2 days, which you can. The games aren't that long. You would have spoiled the entire film on yourself.
Yeah, so like imagine doing that. Imagine like, oh, I'm going to play this game. It's like, no.
And then you go see the film. It's like, wait, I've seen all of this. But yeah, this one at least released a couple of weeks after. I think it's a great game. The Tarzan game. It's a good, solid platformer.
Yep.
And it's fun to hear all the sound effects and lines from it that are directly ripped and put into the game. It's like, oh, there it is. Oh, yeah. Like the monkey noises that are used all over the game. Or it's ripped straight from the score.
And in fairness, my favourite part of these games is, it's, as you said previously, it's a backdoor way of watching the movie.
Yeah, especially because like traditionally, like the VHS release of these films were not much later, but like a decent bit later than the actual
up to a year.
Up to a year sometimes, yeah. And the game came out in some cases before the film, so it was a nice way to relive the favorite scenes of the film by playing through the games. And also, of course, Kingdom Hearts 1. There's a big Tarzan level in it. It's quite cool. He plays Tarzan.
Is it an improvement on the PS game?
Oh, in terms of visuals, yeah. Well, it's a PS2, like Kingdom Hearts 2 is a PS2 game, so, or Kingdom Hearts 1. And I'm not sure, is there any other Tarzan representation in Kingdom Hearts now I think about it? I'm sure he pops up as like a summon or something in one of the other games. But yeah, big Kingdom Hearts 1 representation for Tarzan. In terms of cultural legacy, it's tough because like I would probably definitively say that this, to our generation at least, is the definitive version of Tarzan.
Yes.
Like, because like...
if you Google Tarzan, it's the first thing that comes up on the search results.
Because there was no TV show in like the 50s or whatever.
Yeah.
When was that? I have no cultural reference for a group of people for whom like that version of Tarzan is probably the definitive version of Tarzan, and those people are probably quite old. But for the current generation, and this is a thing, there's been at least like 3 or 4 other Tarzans since this Tarzan, and there'll probably be like another 4 in development at the moment.
And to your point, Gar, a lot of those films were flops.
Yeah. So like people are like, we've had our Tarzan story, we don't need another one. Like, and I'm sure Disney will eventually, if not already, they'll eventually do their own live action version of this version of Tarzan. So
I think that if they do it, they need to not do Mulan and actually put the songs in it. Because
oh, you watched Mulan this week. Do you hate it as much as I hated Beauty and the Beast?
It's okay.
Oh, well, good.
It diverges a fair bit from the movie, especially the fact that it doesn't have any of the songs. Well, they do appear in instrumental form. Not Make a Man Out of You.
What's even the point? Shut the film down.
Although Christina does a new version of Reflection, which is good.
Okay.
And there's a new song for the movie called Loyal, Brave and True, which is by Christina.
Why would you write a new song for the film?
It doesn't appear in the movie. It's at the end.
Still, and take out the best song in Disney history. Why would you do that?
Yeah, Mulan has some good action sequences. The story is a bit all over the place, but it's an enjoyable watch. It's free now on Disney Plus. Well, if you pay for Disney Plus, so check it out.
Yeah, they will inevitably do another version of Tarzan, and
it'll just be Tarzan if they don't do the songs. It has to have the songs.
And like some people give out about like the white savior themes in this, and like the Tarzan is smarter than all of these gorillas and all that stuff. And I don't think there's a ton of that in this version of it, which is pretty good. You know,
there seems to be a sense of equality there, and that he has a love and respect for them, and they have taught him to be the man that he is.
So yeah, I in terms of cultural legacy, I do think this is, to people at the moment, the definitive version of this like would you call Tarzan an iconic character? I guess he is, of this iconic character.
Yeah, he'd be, in terms of like characters that have been adapted over and over. You have Peter Pan, you have Sherlock Holmes, and Tarzan. So like he would be one of those cornerstone characters for people.
Yeah.
The film also led to a Broadway adaptation, which was not very successful. It did run for a year. This was a big blow to Phil Collins. He mentions it in his book that he came from a theatre background. He was in Oliver as a kid, so he really wanted this to be part of his legacy. And, they do stage it from time to time in different markets. And, Disney have monetized it, like high schools and stuff put it on. But it hasn't gotten the same status as the likes of The Lion King. And that was a disappointment to Phil.
There's not enough songs, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, I don't think
he put more songs in the...
Yeah, like Trash in the Camp isn't really a song. So you got Two Worlds, you got You'll Be My Heart, you got Son of Man and Strangers Like Me. As I said, all of which are bangers. They're all phenomenal songs. They're really great. But that's like, as I do some quick math, 10, 11 minutes of cumulative music. So I think you'd need more than that for a musical.
I think it was the case that, songs that weren't put in the movie were put in the musical, as is the case with most of these musicals.
And there's songs in Tarzan too, isn't there?
Yeah.
But they're not by Phil Collins?
I don't think they are. Tarzan, as you said, also spawned a television series, which I remember watching as a kid. I thought it was pretty good. And 2 direct-to-video sequels, Tarzan and Jane, 2002, and Tarzan 2, 2005. Tarzan was also dubbed into 35 languages, which is the most for any at the time.
Nice. So I'm quickly checking, did Phil Collins do the music for... No, he didn't do any of the music for the subsequent sequels, even though he did do music for another Disney film. So
yeah, which is kind of weird.
In which he also produced a banger.
Yeah. Not as many bangers, but at least one very good banger.
Actually, one banger that's probably better than any of the songs in this film, which is interesting. As I said, the consistency of the music in this film is really the strong
point. We don't want to give away those takes yet, because that's coming up in a few weeks.
We're like 50 minutes into this podcast. By the time people hear this, they haven't listened to the Brother Bear takes.
So that's it on Tarzan, Gar. I think the strength of Tarzan is one of the big choices they made in making the story self-contained, keeping it in Africa, being about the relationship with him and his gorilla family. The songs are great. There's some great performances in this movie. I don't think it adds up to an all-time classic, but I think that, and I have a bit of a bias towards it because, again, it's in my peak period for being a Disney kid.
Yeah.
But I do think it holds up as a piece of Disney filmmaking. And similar to Mulan, it shows a bunch of people who are really good at what they do at the peak of their powers doing what they do best.
Yes. I think like the 2 things I will remember from this film, Phil Collins songs, because Phil Collins rules, and Clayton's death, which is such a I'm not even going to say brave. It's just such a stark choice to hang the man in a piece of children's entertainment. All for it. Children should be exposed to hangings. It happens in life.
They need to be exposed to the harsh realities of the world.
Yeah, you need to be traumatized as a kid. It's fine. What a choice. Go for it.
Imagine going out of the cinema as a kid and being like, Mommy, what happened to Clayton? And
yeah, I guess would kids understand that he was hung?
As an adult, it's very obvious, especially the flash that shows him hanging
they
there.
show you he's hung. But maybe you might think he just fell.
Or would a kid pick up on that? Kids, it depends on what age you are. They don't really have a concept of death. So, they might not, like me and you, obviously, that if you fell all that way with a thing wrapped around your neck, you're going to snap your neck. But kids might not make that connection. So they might think that, he's hurt or he's
just trapped in the trees.
He's just sleeping.
he's just hanging there. He's just stuck.
Taking a nap. Yeah, so I don't think kids might get that, but I did see some chatter online where people only got it, years later.
Because I forgot about it until literally 2 minutes before it happened, or less even, 30 seconds before it happened. I was like, oh yeah, Clayton's death. It's there he goes, he's hanged. It's great. Yeah. Hanged or hung or I never know. I think it is hanged, but I prefer hung, so I will be grammatically incorrect in favor of what sounds better in my mouth.
Yeah, I like hung too, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
Shh, this is a Disney podcast. All right, Tarzans and Janes. Sadly, we've nearly come to the end of the show for another week. Resident musical expert Nicole is coming up in just a few moments with her own take on a song from the movie.
If she has a single bad word to say about Phil Collins, she's gone. She's done.
Gar, you're safe. I've listened to her bit and she has no criticism for Phil Collins.
Good.
You're in for a real treat this week, so be sure to stick around for that at the end. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check check out our website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com to find a full list of podcast providers. There, you'll also find all our previous episodes if you're in the mood to catch up or revisit an old favourite. Magic by Design is also on all your favourite social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/magicbydesignpod, on Twitter at magicdesignpod, and on Insta at magicbydesignpod. If you enjoy listening to our Disney critiques and want to support the show, please do consider giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. Share the podcast on your socials or recommend the show to a fellow Disney fan. If you don't give us a 5-star review, you'll never win the approval of your adopted gorilla father.
Yeah, he'll be like, "You're not my son. You will never be my son.
You gave me 1 star.
He will never be your child."
We will be back next week at the same time, same place, with a review of Disney's 38th animated feature. Brace yourself, Gar. It's Fantasia 2000.
No! I refuse. The podcast is over. Cancelling everything. Why did they do Fantasia again? Of course, they're like, we're at the peak of our powers. People loved Hercules. People loved The Lion King. People loved The Little Mermaid. Beauty and the Beast is like one of the most artistically viable things we've ever made. Mulan, Tarzan, these hits. We're churning out classics. Let's do Fantasia.
But until then, stay safe and remember, trust your heart. Let fate decide. Now then, Nicole is back with her rendition of You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan. Thanks for listening. Now, over to you, Nicole.
Hello there, Disney lovers. It's me, your musical correspondent, Nicole, coming to you live from my bedroom. This week we're going deep into the jungle with Tarzan. Music exec Chris Montan brought Phil Collins on board to write the songs for the film, starting work in 1995. Directors Kevin Lima and Chris Buck went against the grain and decided not to have the characters sing the songs, but instead have them sung by Phil as a narrator. Collins says many of the songs came from improvisations after reading the source material. Mark Mancina composed the instrumental scoring for the film and worked very closely with Collins to ensure the music and songs complemented each other, using many obscure instruments. Tarzan was the first Disney soundtrack to be recorded in multiple languages for different markets, with Collins recording in English, Italian, German, Spanish, and French. The song You'll Be in My Heart won both the Academy Award and Golden Globe Award for Best Original Song, and received a Grammy Award nomination for Best Song Written for a Motion Picture, Television or Other Visual Media, while the soundtrack album won a Grammy Award for Best Soundtrack Album. For his contributions to the soundtrack, Collins received an American Music Award for Favourite Adult Contemporary Artist. You'll Be in My Heart is said to have been composed as a lullaby for Phil's daughter, Lily. This week I couldn't resist giving this lullaby a go, so here's my version of You'll Be in My Heart. I hope you enjoy it. Come, stop your crying, it will be alright. Just take my hand, hold it tight. I will protect you from all around you. I will be here, don't you cry. For one so small, you seem so strong. My arms will hold you, keep you safe and warm. This bond between us can't be broken. I will be here, don't you cry. 'Cause you'll be in my heart. Yes, you'll be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore. You'll be in my heart, no matter what they say. You'll be here in my heart, always. Why can't they understand the way we feel? They just don't trust what they can't explain. I know we're different, but deep inside us, we're not that different at all. And you'll be in my heart. Yes, you'll be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore. Don't listen listen to them, 'cause what do they know? We need each other to have to hold. We'll see in time. I know when destiny calls you, you must be strong. I may not be with you, but you've got to hold on. They'll see in time. I know we'll show them together, 'cause you'll be in my heart. Believe me, you'll be in my heart. I'll be there from this day on, now and forevermore. Oh, you'll be in my heart, no matter what they say. You'll be here in my heart, always, always. I'll be with you. I'll be there for you always, always and always. Just look over your shoulder. Just look over your shoulder. Just look over your shoulder.